Need to change computers real quick. Good evening. My name is Andrew Palmer, and before I begin, I'd like to show my appreciation to all who are present and thank you for coming. It means very much to me to see all these people present, as it does for my colleagues and who are also presenting tonight. You remind us that there are people who care about our accomplishments and what the future holds. Tonight I wish to present you with some of my work and afterwards answer any questions about the presentation. I'm set to be graduating with my Associates of Applied Science in Professional Photography, Communications, and Graphic Design Multimedia later this month. From my beginnings, I've followed my own path to get wherever I want to go in life. From my early childhood years, I would become absorbed in whatever I did. I was a very sensory-oriented child, taking in all the details of the world around me and replicating them in my own perspective. I also had a knack for details, and though I was a very messy child and occasionally tested my boundaries, I was arguably the most artistic. In elementary school, I became fascinated with buildings and making things. I wanted to become an architect, and I began learning and reading about famous architects from the modern era. People like Arthur Erickson, Frank Lloyd Wright, and I.M. Hay fueled my imagination, and in retrospect, were an early influence on my current graphic design work, which is more or less a recontextualized image of the modern movement in architecture. Unfortunately for me, my dreams of designing buildings would be squashed by my struggles with math in middle school. After dabbling with the idea of being a musician, I made the choice to find something that provided more security and more independence in my work. It didn't take me long to realize that photography was that option. I had a knack for taking pictures as a kid, and while in high school I took a couple photography classes. There I discovered an underlying passion for making images. I had my father's camera everywhere I went, snapping images whenever I saw a photographic moment and playing around in Photoshop. Upon graduation, I received a Canon Rebel XTI. From there, the floodgates were opened, and I was absolutely enveloped in taking pictures. Everything from my friends to unorganized piles of stuff lying around became a subject. The summer before I started Cecil was pretty crucial in my development as a photographer, as I was very ignorant about the technicals of an image, but didn't really care about the details. But I was still learning the foundations of good composition, along with my work ethic for creating. By the time I had started my semester at Cecil, I had a very good handle on my operations of the camera, but was clueless on everything else. Photography 101 helped me better understand light and its properties, and set forth the discovery of a whole new world of influences. If I wasn't shooting pictures, I was going through the monographs of Richard Avedon, Art Wolfe, Bird and Hilla Becker, Arnold Newman, and plenty more others. I never really was looking at a particular niche of photography, but simply ingesting everything that I saw and anything that was interesting. Everything was fascinating then, and it still is. One of the wonderful things about photography is that it's always changing. My indiscrepancy for really any interest has shown in my work and experience, and as a result, I'm comfortable shooting in a variety of situations at times. While it's frustrating, it allows me to both explore subjects in depth, as well as utilizing different perspectives to achieve my goals. Soon I started taking studio classes where I quickly learned a reputation for being cognitive, structured, and precise. I was always challenging myself with lighting setups, while simultaneously helping fellow students learn their lighting and understand their lighting techniques. During my summer months throughout my stay at Cecil, I would spend my days in the studio, practicing various setups and experimenting with equipment to better understand how light worked. By the time I'd completed 3 studio classes, I was capable of creating work that could be applied for commercial purposes, as well as the world of fine art. I took part in Christy Eisenberg's portfolio production class and began to explore the area surrounding the school. I discovered the beauty of Gilpin's Falls, which is just about a half mile down the way, and proceeded to create an entire portfolio around the area. This was a very intrinsic experience for me, and I fell head over heels with its natural serenity. It's an experience I'm not going to forget anytime soon. Around this time, however, I felt that a critical part of my experience was being left out. A majority of my influences' best work was never done by digital means, and I felt that I was turning my back to what it means to make an image. Not to simply take a photo, but the physical process of making photos. I realized I would need to start learning the analog medium of film, which was something at the time was particularly difficult in all digital curriculum. I found that there was a more tangible and genuine experience when you're working with your hands, mixing chemicals and occasionally overdeveloping. Much like our relationships in life, it is the people who are physically close to you and interact with that have the most influence on you, rather than those who are just connected by you by digital means. Through the help of my new instructor and mentor at the time, Andy Bloxham, I started shooting and developing roll film. I also discovered a hidden treasure that I'd spent so much time, or in the studio I'd spent so much time in. A Calumet 4x5 view camera, complete with lenses, cable releases, a very smelly dark cloth, and packaged in a very heavy wooden box. After renting some film backs from a local camera shop owner, I started to shoot positive contact prints. I would cut up positive print paper that is normally used for pinhole cameras and loaded them into film backs. From there I would find a scene, calculate the rough exposure with my Rebel XTI, and compose an image. Afterwards there were tray developed in the kitchenette down in the VCP lab. For my final capstone project, I decided to try something I haven't done, urban landscapes. My project is entitled Nights, and is really my first attempt at creating work with a well-structured concept. Originally, the project was more about looking at our world once most of us have gone to sleep between the hours of 1 and 6 a.m., and how it changes when there aren't so many eyes to witness our own environment. But after an epiphany one morning, I discovered a better understanding for the work at hand. These commonplace, dark, isolated objects are utilitarian in their nature, and have a set defined reasoning for their existence. Without people during these hours, they're simply relics of our era, fresh remains of a modern society that were fueled by our desires. In an ironic sense, these places show how purposeless we really are by illustrating our need to be surrounded by the utilitarian objects we create and find purpose for. Just like the objects that surround us, we ourselves need a defined purpose in order to not be a relic of history. To do this project, I shot on 4x5 sheet film and digitally scanned the negatives in order to do post-production and prepare the images for large-scale printing. The negatives are scanned at a very high resolution, so that optimal quality of the editing and final printing can be obtained. The image you see here is a comparison of different sensor sizes of digital cameras in comparison to the scanned 4x5 negative. While there is much more work involved with retouching the negative, cleaning up dust and hair, the benefit is an overall lower cost in using less resources. The pack of film that was used to make this image and several others was around $30, while the Hasselblad H4D 60 can be yours today for the low price of $39,995. Hopefully shipping's included. Doing this project consisted of some interesting moments, like being stopped by the police for having a view camera out at 4 in the morning. But it was also one of my most challenging projects I've ever done, both physically and mentally. I feel that this project was in every sense the greatest challenge I've had yet, and is a testament to all the lessons I've learned over my career at Cecil College. Without the support of the staff and the visual communications department, along with my family and friends, I'm certain I wouldn't be where I am right now as a photographer. Upon graduating at Cecil, I will be looking for employment in the creative field, mainly as a studio photographer and graphic designer, to support my artistic endeavors in photography and acquiring further education. I've also started a website where I will be consistently updating work and offering lessons on photography, graphic design, and ranting about various topics I'm passionate about. I wish you all the best in your endeavors, however big or small, and to always continue striving for everything you want out of life. Thank you for your time. Do we have any questions?
Where can we see your work?
Online. On the internet. Oh, yes. If you haven't seen my work just yet, it is down this hallway, and it is the second room on the left. There will be 3 images, wooden frames. There'll be couches, all set up for everybody. Our next guest is Mike Reynolds.